history in the making, healing to be awakened. Yeah, you are the star of your story at Let's Talk and Grow with Ms Roshumba.
My son is born on a Wednesday. Seen and felt because they are the largest group. And so
we got your back. No, we're not perfect.
So now you know it's time to grow at Let's Talk and Grow with Ms Roshumba. Let the healing begin. Hi, greetings and welcome to another session of Let's Talk and Grow with Ms Roshumba. Today I have a guest with me, Ms Jeleana, Ms Jeleana Johnson to be exact, and she's going to talk it out with me today. But as I like to do, the time is ticking. So that's why I turned the clock around. So as I like to do, first give thanks to the Almighty Creator that has brought us together to do the work for ourselves and for the people, for our community, the healing work. And so this is 2024, and I'm going in it in full force in doing my part and elevating the truth of who we are and what we need to do to rise to a better self. Okay, so with that, I'm going to begin with just introducing her to you. Okay, so my guest today, like I said, her name is Ms Jeleana Johnson. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, thank you for saying yes
Okay.
to telling your story.
Yes.
So I'm going to introduce you all to her by telling you who she is. My guest today is the epitome of God's grace. She's utterly gentle as a butterfly and wise as an owl.
Mm-hmm.
Her artistic talent spans many unique areas. She never tells herself no to a creation, especially if it's an inward calling. Sister, her life experience have made her to be mystically power-filled. The early years of her life especially was the foundational classroom to which she learned her strengths, and that she has chosen to be a vessel in which her generational hurt-filled legacies are to be worked out. That is a calling that we of African descent that are born in the diaspora has had to live with as a rites of passages since the Ma'afa, which means our enslavement trauma. The effects of it must be dealt with in a conscious manner. We have been socialized to believe that we are just made to be harming the ones that we love, and they in turn to us. And that oftentimes our fragmented lives of trying to rescue, heal, and love away our invisible wounds without knowing the cause is what leads us into mental disarray. But today, my guest, Ms Jeleana, will tell her heartfelt story in hopes that we too can find courage to look into our lives and ask ourselves why we do some of the things that causes pain to us and those we are here to love and protect. And are we possibly to believe that our journey from our enslavement can be just something that happened way back there, so get over it? So today, it's with great humility and respect that I welcome Ms Jeleana J to my show. Sister, welcome. Thank you for saying yes.
Thank you. I appreciate the honor.
Yes.
Thank you.
The title of the show will be No More Tears, No More Fears.
Yep.
That's a quote from my sister, Ms Jeleana. So, Now I'm going to go into the question time of things, Ms Jeleana.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you to speak up so that the audience could hear you clearly as you tell your story.
All right.
Why is it important now to tell the tale of your earlier years this many seasons later?
I think it is very important, and it perhaps could have been done at an earlier time. But whenever it happens, it means growth for the person involved. It means forgiveness of understanding why things happened to you the way they did, especially with or from those that you consider to have loved you.
Yes.
They have had to learn how to love, and sometimes they never did.
Yes.
You have the option of not allowing, for lack of a better term, the trauma of living to be a source of pain in your life. Yes, you're going to have memories. Yes, you're going to have certain kinds of feelings about how it affected you.
Mm-hmm.
But bottom line, you have the choice for making it better, no matter what your surrounding circumstances are. The one thing that I have learned is I know that there is a supreme being,
Yes.
greater than I.
Yes.
And I also know that even though his word has been tampered with, you might say, and changed about, but the essence was there for you to garner for your own soul. Okay?
Keyword, that essence.
Yes.
So, to whom do you wish to learn something from your experience the most? Who in the audience would you want to say, I'm talking to these groups of people today?
I've never pinpointed it, but I think it's young women more than any other thing. We have a tendency to blame the other individual for things that have negatively affected us.
Meaning other individual, meaning the men in our lives?
The men in our lives.
Okay.
Even mothers.
Okay.
and
Blaming our mothers.
Yes.
Okay.
And we might want to blame them for the circumstances that you are now living.
Mm-hmm.
But the blessed part about it is you have a choice to decide whether or not that's the place you're going to stay in, or you're going to get up and grow.
Thank you so much for that. Audience, put on your listening ear, because we're going to go somewhere today that a lot of us need to go in order to be wholer and more one with ourselves and our family and our community. So I'm going to break this up into 4 different parts. This is going to be part 1. And, and so this is where we'll begin. As you can tell, she's doing some of her artistry as we sit here and talk. So she'll tell you at the end where you can get some of these lovely items that she creates. Okay, so let's get to know the family dynamics that formed your life's experience on the matriarchal side. So tell me more about who your mom was.
Okay.
And, her mother, just a little bit more about her. First, let's say, where is she from? Where were your family from, your mother's side?
My mother's side, she was born in Chicago, Illinois.
Chicago.
But her father was from Louisiana.
Okay.
And he went to the north when they had the Great Migration. Of black folk moving
Correct.
out of the South.
Okay.
My grandmother,
Your mom's mom.
my mom's mom, she was born on the island of Guadeloupe.
Guadeloupe Island,
Yes.
Caribbean.
Yes.
Okay.
Her mother was a French person.
Okay.
She was born in France.
Okay.
And her father was, oh Lord, help me. What's the continent that starts, the country that starts with an A? Algeria.
Okay.
And
Algeria.
they were,
North Africa.
yes, they were connected during a time when there was a deep uprising of the French and the Algerians, and there was a lot of conflict. So a relationship, either man or woman, was frowned upon.
Okay.
So what they did after marrying, they left Algeria and went to Guadeloupe.
Okay.
My grandmother was one child, and then there was another. She and her sister.
So there were two of them.
The two of them.
Mm-hmm.
Their parents were afflicted, I might say,
Okay.
with the fever that went through.
Could have been yellow fever, because yellow fever was rampant around that time.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And they both died.
Ooh.
So they were raised
Orphans.
in a Catholic orphanage.
Orphanage. Okay.
And they were deeply rooted in Catholicism.
Okay.
And when they got old enough, they left that island and went to Canada,
Okay.
Quebec, more particularly. So the influence that I have is that I have a person who lived a different lifestyle other than American lifestyle.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Being Caribbean born.
Yes.
And coming from a European background to
Yes.
a degree.
Yes.
And then tie that in with Catholicism. Yeah.
Yes.
So that was the formation of your mother's upbringing.
Yes. Now, they did not stay together. My grandfather was, I only saw him once in my lifetime, and that was when I was 5 years old.
And he was the Algerian.
No, my grandfather was the Louisiana.
Okay.
My grandmother's father and mother.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So your great grandparents.
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
But, so my grandmother, she worked all the time.
Okay.
And she didn't tolerate the extra curricular, you might say, activities of a man.
Yes.
And not being accustomed to the way life was lived in the United States. She couldn't handle it. She left my grandfather
Okay.
and moved to California, to Los Angeles, and immediately went to work. She worked hard all her life.
So your grandmother was a very hard worker.
Very hard worker.
And because she came from the background where she had no parents, really, because they both died,
Mm-hmm.
she basically then had no family.
Had no family other than her sister.
Other than her sister.
Mm-hmm.
So the family dynamics there was very small.
They were very small.
And economically, they were mediocre. I mean, she was was she mixed? She was considered mixed breed,
Yeah, she was
right?
considered mixed race.
Yeah, because her mom was
French.
white.
Okay.
Okay. How about the community that she lived in? Was there a strong community supporting her?
No.
So
No.
she was on it basically alone.
She was basically alone, but she was strong-willed and determined. Now,
Okay.
when she brought my mother and my uncle, because they were two children, and they were raised in Los Angeles, she had to leave them alone several days at a time.
Your grandmother.
My grandmother.
Okay. We're gonna your father's side now. Tell me who your dad was.
My father was James Thomas Coleman. He, the second, he was a junior to my grandfather.
Okay.
He was the youngest boy, baby boy, and he had 3 sisters ahead of him, 4 brothers ahead of him, and behind him was just 2, my aunt Elizabeth and my aunt Helen.
So there were about 10 children?
About 10 children.
Okay, including him.
And he was the baby.
Okay.
And they spoiled him rotten.
So he's the one from Louisiana.
No, he's from Texas.
He's from Texas. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and he was loving and kind because he was the last one.
They
loved on him.
They loved on him and protected and cared for him. And he was born in he was born in the panhandle
Okay.
of Texas.
Of Texas.
And very close to the Louisiana border. And it's my understanding that there is quite a mixture of getting along with one another because they were so close to Louisiana and they're on the panhandle. So there was a back and forth.
Okay.
With
two different states.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Panhandle is Texas and Louisiana. They kind of connected.
They do. They connected.
Okay.
Now, my father moved from from Texas to California when the whole family left the state of Texas. And it was basically because they wanted a better life than what they could have received. Being a Coleman, they had property, but other folks decided they weren't supposed to have it. So I had an uncle who went back to protect his claim, and they killed him. And so that dynamic put a big hold on the two children that were developed as a result of their marriage, but it affected the family altogether.
Yeah, because it was a large family.
Yes.
So they migrated away from Texas.
Yes.
And came to California.
Exactly.
So it was California you were born.
Yes.
In. Okay. Okay. Wow. Interesting. Interesting.
Very interesting.
So it is here in California that your mom and dad met each other?
Yes.
Okay. In the Northern California or the Southern?
In Southern Los Angeles.
Okay. All right. You know, the relationship with your mother and father began early on to his arrival in California?
No, he was a baby when they came.
Okay.
And they grew up. He went to high school and he graduated. My father was, almost 10 years older than my mother.
Okay.
She always made herself appear to be older than her years.
Okay.
Because of having to take on the role of being a communicator to people for my grandmother's sake.
Right.
And having been left at home by herself with just my uncle, they had developed a means of living and support with one another.
Okay, your uncle and your mother.
And my uncle and my mother.
And how many years apart were they?
I think 2 years.
Okay.
Like 2.5 years.
Okay, so what we're going to do now, we're going to go back and delve into, now that we kind of understand who mom is and grandparents on mother's side, we also now touched on the father's side and get to know he came from a very tight-knit family and a large family, and he being the youngest, he got a lot of nurturing and loving.
Oh, he did.
And he showed up that love, and in time she will touch on how that love showed up in her journey.
Yes.
But we're going to hit on, just slightly, we're going to touch on the relationship between your mother and her brother. Okay, let's touch on that. You could go as far into it as you choose to, and tell us the story between them, because your grandmother only had 2 children.
Right.
And she raised them alone.
She had still a child earlier, but that baby died before my mother was born.
Okay. Her first was.
Yes. So, as I said, my grandmother worked hard, and she was always a governess. That was her entrance into the work world, where she worked for wealthy people. Most times they were white.
So she was like worked in the house, maybe domesticated work?
Domesticated work. And she, being fluent in the French language could teach the other children, which brought her extra income.
Wow.
She never really gained a proficiency in English. That just was not her forte.
Okay.
So my mother became the
Translator type?
translator
Okay.
for her,
Okay.
which in her head gave her a sense of superiority over my grandmother.
Okay.
And there was no one to teach her any differently.
Okay, because the family was small.
As the family was
Right.
small, she had to leave my uncle and my mom at home by themselves when they were very small, like 4 and 5 years old, and they would be left at home.
And the uncle was the older?
No, the uncle was the younger.
Okay, so your mom was the older.
My mom was the
Okay.
older. And excuse me, it's hard to discuss this, but
Would you like some water? So we're going to pause a little bit.
exploration.
Yeah.
Exploration brought on issues that they had someone around them.
Did
to
you say
teach them
exploration?
of themselves between each
Oh,
other.
exploring each
Yeah.
other as
Yeah.
children would. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
And had they had someone there, it probably wouldn't have gone
Right.
as far as
Right.
it did. Okay.
So, audience, we see that even today. When the relationship between man and woman break down and, mom has to work, father is no longer there. And so, you find the children, at home alone. The older one caring for the younger one. That becomes our legacy through our challenges and our journey, trying to do a lot with a little. So that's another reason why this show is important, so that we could connect the dots of how we arrive to certain levels in our lives. So my sister is going to hit a little bit more on this subject of her brother, her mother and her brother, being left at home when grandmother goes to work. And like she said, grandmother is doing it alone and she's working hard. So go ahead and continue that, my sister.
So, the exploration of their bodies between each other was their comfort zone
Yes,
from being left alone.
yes. Exploration,
Yes.
incest,
Incest.
yes.
And it continued.
No, it's time to grow at Let's Talk and Grow with Ms Roshumba. Let the healing begin.